Oof.
Thank you all so much.
Hi.
Jane, welcome.
Thank you, Sam.
We're so pleased to have you here. The title of our conversation today is An Icon's Next Act. But before we go there, I'd like to just look back on your many previous acts. Jane, you're on the cover of Time this month for receiving our second Time Earth Award, honoring the work that you've done to create climate action. You were actually first on the cover of Time in 1970. This was a piece of artwork done by, you said, your friend Andy Warhol, featuring you, your father, and your brother under the headline, The Flying Fondas. The number of people who have been on the cover of Time across the span of more than a half century could probably fit inside an Uber. And so we are here to recognize your achievements across those many decades. I'm curious, as you reflect, what the Jane Fonda of 2024 would want to tell the Jane Fonda of 1970.
Keep going, it's going to get better. Don't give up. I don't know, a whole lot of other things. I've outlived them all.
You outlived them all? See, I knew you had more to say about that.
I have a lot more to say, but we have so little time, and I want to talk about climate.
On your work on climate, what do you say to people who think actors should stay out of politics?
They're wrong. In a democracy, we all play a role. In fact, historically, actors, artists, poets, writers have always had an outsized role in changing history, in changing things. Way back to the Greeks, you know, we don't tolerate tyrants, and we believe in freedom, and so we stand up, and we have every right, just like anybody else does. Now, we carry weight because we're famous, so we have to be careful to understand and talk correctly, but it's important that we speak up, and historically we have.
Your next act is climate action, climate activism. You've been an activist now for more than a half century. How does your work in climate connect to those previous actions that you've taken?
Well, you know, when you really are committed to something, you drill down and you really understand it. And for me, in the past, it's been patriarchy, what it's done to women, what women should be able to do. It's been the history of what we did to indigenous people in this country. It's been a lot of things like that. Coming to climate, I've realized climate is like Russian nesting dolls. You open it up and everything else is in there. There would be no climate crisis if there was no racism. There'd be no climate crisis if there was no patriarchy. It's a mindset. And so when we address the climate crisis, we have to also address the way we feel about all kinds of other things. It all goes together.
You've always had this connection to nature, and you've talked about this, you know, growing
Well, there was a lot more of it when I was born. I was born in 1937, okay? And in Los Angeles, there was no freeway, there was no smog. There were only in the world 2 billion people. That makes a big difference. And so I was a tomboy, and things weren't so great at home, and so nature was where I found solace. And then as nature began to disappear, I noticed. Not everybody notices maybe, but you know, there are 3 billion fewer birds in North America than there were in 1970. That's not so long ago. You know, and I grew up with the sounds of meadowlarks and mourning doves and whippoorwills. And, you know, it's great being old because I know what it's supposed to be. Young people don't realize it's not normal to drive fast on a freeway and not have bugs splatter on your windshield. They don't know that it's not normal to hear bird songs. They don't know that it's not normal that there are kids who've never smoked who get taken to hospitals suffering from black lung because of fossil fuel pollution. I mean, things are out of balance now, and we have to reconnect with nature and fight for it.
Is there Is there a moment that you look back on where you believe your climate journey began?
Absolutely. I mean, I've been an environmentalist all my life, but you know, I have a platform, and I wasn't really using it full out. And about 5 years ago, I come from a long line of depressed people, so I can go down a rabbit hole of despair. And it was 112 degrees in Los Angeles. The sky was orange-brown because of the wildfires. It was apocalyptic. Birds were falling dead out of the sky over Arizona and New Mexico, and I just went down a rabbit hole. I knew I wasn't doing enough, and I didn't know what to do. And I received a manuscript of Naomi Klein's book, On Fire. She's my friend. It's not a long book, and I read it, and I closed the book, and I said, okay, very inspired by Greta Thunberg. I'm gonna put myself on the line. I'm gonna leave my comfort zone and raise a ruckus. And so this is the smartest thing I ever did. I called Annie Leonard, who was the director of Greenpeace at the time, because Greenpeace is such a brave organization. And I said, I'm gonna move to DC and I'm gonna commit to this. And long story short, it turned out to be Fire Drill Friday, which we did for about 5 months, and everybody engaged in civil disobedience and risked getting arrested, because we knew that a majority of Americans were really concerned about climate. 30% of them said that they would be willing to engage in civil disobedience. And when asked why they hadn't, they said, because nobody asked me. So Fire Drill Fridays in DC was aiming at the great unasked. And I turned 82 in jail there, and I figured, see, if I do this, a whole lot of people would say, well, God, if she can do it, I guess I can do it. And people came from all over the country, mostly women with gray hair like me. And first time at a rally, first time this is what we want to build up activism, because one of the parts of it's a two-part solution. And I'm not talking like John Kerry, he's on the inside. I'm on the outside. And one part is we have to organize unprecedented numbers of people that will go into the streets and put their bodies on the line, non-violently. If you look at history, this is what changes history. The other half is, to be successful, you've got to have hearts and ears on the inside that will hear you and act. And so many of our elected officials take money from the fossil fuel industry. You know, Joe Manchin is just the most famous of them, but they're all over the country. And they block all the really important legislation that's commensurate with what science is asking for. And so we have to get rid of them. If you can't change the people, change the people.
Do you?
Right? We have to elect climate change. I've started a climate pact for this purpose. We have to elect climate champions up and down the ballot. City councils, boards of supervisors, even sheriffs, county executives, mayors. This is where the robust action on climate is happening now. And you know, the Republicans they've known about this for a long time. For decades, they just went about spending the Koch brothers' money and getting all these right-wingers elected up and down the ballot. And then suddenly Democrats woke up and said, oh my God, we've seen what happens when you don't have, you know, when MAGA people have control of state legislatures and executive positions and everything. We have to end that, and we have to do it really quickly. And that is why November is the first time that I've been able to, this is an existential election. Who wins here is going to determine whether is going to do a lot to determine whether there is a livable future. And so when you go to vote, have climate in your heart. You can find out if the person you're thinking about voting for takes money from the fossil fuel industry. Have they ever done anything brave to stop a pipeline or something like that? Vote for climate champions. Okay? Now, as a climate activist, I'm angry at Joe Biden, but I will do everything in my power to get him reelected. Here's why. No matter what you feel, I mean, nobody's perfect. You're not marrying him, right? But here's the thing. Joe Biden provides us a context in which we can fight. And he can be pressured. I know that. He's pressurable. The orange guy, forget it. There's no space to fight or disagree or anything. This is going to become a fascist country if he is elected. So make sure that everybody you know understands this. Make sure that the young people you know understand what's at stake, okay? You don't have to love everything about him, but you can change him. And the alternative is too horrible to think about.
You and I were talking backstage, and it sounds like there's, you tell me if I'm mischaracterizing it, either fear or frustration that you feel like generations different than yours don't embrace that same vision, that there isn't the same sense of the stakes of this election among people across the ages right now. Do you think that's true?
Well, I think young people are absolutely enraged, furious, and desperate about what's happening to the planet. It's their future. and they have had nothing to do with what has put the future at risk. By the way, neither have we. Let us absolutely understand who's evil here. The fossil fuel industry have lied to us for 50 years. They knew exactly what was going to happen because their scientists told them. Only it's happening faster than their scientists said. They've lied to us, and that's why we're facing a crisis. If they had found out and then admitted it and said, okay, what are we going to do? Let's work on this, we would not be in a crisis. We could have had a gradual transition, the inevitable transition away from fossil fuels that John Kerry mentioned. But they didn't.
I think Secretary Kerry would say, and I hate to put words in his mouth, that we have to work with these companies, with the fossil fuel companies.
Well, that's his job. I don't want, he can do that. I've sort of tried to lay the groundwork for a pussy boycott so that, I'm kidding in a way, sort of. Lisa Strada did it. But we have to remove social license from these people. And I'm glad that John Kerry is doing what he's doing because I couldn't handle it, frankly. I want to work with the people who are going to go into the streets like they did during the Great Depression by the millions. Is what's needed, by the millions. And when they demanded of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, we want fairness and good salaries, and he said, I agree with you. Now go out and make me do it. And that's our job. That's our homework. We have to go out and we have to re-elect Biden and then go out and make him do it.
I don't think people are in the streets right now in support of the president.
No, but that's okay. I understand why people, young people, I know from my own self, it's kind of great that so many young people who've never been passionate and active before are out there, and I understand and totally sympathize with them. But we have to, between now and November, we all have to talk about the climate and the importance of voting with the climate in mind. No matter what your other issues are, because we're not going to get anything that we want if we don't address the climate crisis.
How do you convince a young person today who doesn't believe that?
I'm trying to figure it out. I'm not sure. I'd love to know if any of you have ideas, but I think it's important to say that it's nobody's perfect. You're not marrying him. You're making a pragmatic decision for one side because it's the side that allows you to make a difference. You can act if you try, and the other side is a door slammed in the face of democracy, and there's nowhere to move there, and we're going to all go down together.
Jane Fonda?
Is that over? Is it over? This is also important, but I know you're limited, and I'm certainly limited.
You told my colleague Stephanie Zacharek, one of the reasons I'm so involved is I'm 86 years old. I have a feeling that people can say, look at what she's doing at her age. If she can do it, I can do it too.
Yeah, well, that's, when I turned 82 in jail, a lot of women said, well, I can do that too, and that's why so many gray-haired ladies showed up in Washington. It's true. Also, you see, you do tend to get braver when women tend to get braver when they get older. What the hell do we have to lose, right? I don't have to sleep with some guy that doesn't want me to be strong and brave anymore. So, let's do it.
On that note, Jane Fonda, Thank you for coming to the Time 100 Summit.
Thank you
very much.
Sam. Thank you.